Welcome to this edition of Hardman Talks. My name is Keith Hiscock, the CEO of Hardman & Co, and I'm pleased today to be joined by Cees Vermaas, who is the CEO of the International Stock Exchange. Welcome, Cees.
Thank you very much to have me on, Keith. Thank you.
So, Cees, can we first of all start with a brief outline of what the International Stock Exchange does, or TISE as it's referred to, because I suspect many viewers don't know very much about it.
Yeah. So maybe best to explain is that TISE, the International Stock Exchange, and we call it TISE more and more, and we don't use the stock exchange abbreviation that much anymore, is actually a result from the Channel Islands Stock Exchange, which were founded in 1998. So that's a coincidence, but this year we celebrate our 25th anniversary. Not really an incumbent exchange like London Stock Exchange or Amsterdam or New York, but still quite an effort. The Channel Stock, the TISE has an exchange license which is provided by the Guernsey regulator. So we are based in Guernsey, but very much still covering the markets around the other Channel Islands. So Jersey, for instance, at this stage, is a very important provider of business. So the biggest business we are driving is debt securities, in more kind of general terms, bonds, and that entails mainly corporate bonds. And that is not, so we have a platform with listed bonds, and we compete on that level with the 4 or 5 European platforms in the European time zone. So amongst London Stock Exchange, Luxembourg, the Irish market, which is Euronext these days, and Vienna. And TISE is certainly at number 4 or 5, depends how you measure it. 650 billion financed sterling financed capital we have listed on our platform in Guernsey, which is substantial. And then on top of that, we have, because of the license, we also have a small stock market. Stock markets made a kind of development over the last 20 years, and they merged and they became big data companies. The Channel Islands is actually too small in order to provide a proper kind of stock market. So most of the companies there, it's approximately 5, 6, are local, and they could be categorized as small and medium enterprises if you compare them to the public markets. And now recently, and we will talk about that a bit later, we launched a private market.
Okay, thank you. And you've just had your recent results, results for the first half of 2023. Can you just outline what you think the highlights were?
Well, we did actually very well. So post-COVID, anyway, in general, our markets and the debt securities are very private equity driven, so private money. That has been always a very good business. But even with the rise of inflation and later the rise of interest rates, where you saw actually that bond markets and fixed income markets around us were actually suffering a lot. I give you one example, which is an obvious one, is Ireland, for instance. They lost 40 or over 40% in 2022, while we actually didn't see that much. And we see actually also ongoing, and also the first half year of 2023, we see resilience of our own market. It's still going strong. We are diversified in the type of bonds we are doing. We see more business coming and being issued for structures into the EU zone, so Europe, so the Netherlands, Nordics, France, Germany, while England still remains, in terms of corporate, our main market. So 60% of our issues are focused on or are about English structures. So we got a 7% raise in turnover, 5.2 million. We have an extremely efficient operated model. I'm very keen with the team in order to run our platform as an electronic platform, not as an old incumbent exchange. Our operating margins are pretty high, and our net profit margin is over 45%, and we kept on being on that levels. Our profit after tax is about 2.4 million, so you have to see it in perspective. We are ongoing committed to our shareholders just to return capital for their support of the exchange.
And of course, to remind people, you are a quoted company yourself.
We are listed on our own exchange. That's true. Yeah.
Now, I think one of the most interesting aspects of TISE has been your development of a market in private companies. Now, many see this as a solution to the lack of IPOs in the quoted markets, which is a problem across the world, and is also potentially a solution to the declining number of listed companies in developed markets. Can you tell us why you're doing this and what the benefits are for companies and for investors?
Well, certainly. Well, 3 years ago we started, and actually it had to do also. There was during the COVID with the Brexit, the upcoming Brexit situation, where the Channel Islands were cut off, of a potential situation where they provide benefits for an EU country in the UK. So we were looking at our market and what would be the next kind of wave. And we acknowledged already for companies, for instance, that there is a lack of an alternative to a public listing, actually, if you want to create liquidity or you want to create exit or entrance kind of possibilities for your investors. That's one. Companies, they have that possibility to go to a public market, but then they have to acknowledge the regulations, which are pretty heavy. It's very expensive because you have all kinds of parties around you, which you have as listing sponsors, or you have to have auditors, you have to report. You're out of control of who are your shareholders are. You don't know who's buying your shares. And there's still limited liquidity for the SMEs, for the small and medium enterprises. So public markets, and that is now acknowledged, and you see it almost on a daily basis in the newspapers, is not really a solution. From the investor side, there's also a problem, because for an investor to invest in private equity or private stocks, it's very difficult to enter. And once you're in, once that finally you succeeded, it's very difficult to get out, because there's not a mechanism or a system in order to create liquidity. And I think we found together, with our studies and research, a solution for both parties. So we created a disintermediated mechanism, managing registers, creating portals to operate for the company, to operate their own internal market, for investors to see what their position is. And we created a concentration of liquidity moments. So not really open trading with support like you see on every exchange, but an auction system where you actually compress all the bid and ask together, and at a certain moment, and that could be once per week or once per day or once per month or even once per year, you have a share price, and you have, if you agree as operator, issuing company, you can do the execution. And last but not least, in that value chain of this intermediation, we also take care of the settlement. That means that we take care of the transfer of ownership of the seller of shares towards the buyer, and we take care of the money flow, so the cash management as well, on a riskless period, on a riskless kind of situation. And that is what you see, what we did, and we recently proved that with our first client.
So let's come on to the first client then. That was Blue Diamond.
Yeah.
So what does that do? Give us a flavour of that business.
Now, Blue Diamond is actually a great example of a company we would like to see. First of all, it exists already for a long time. It's active in the retail business. It provides garden centers, which had a huge growth around the COVID period. And by the way, everyone, retailers or consumers, are very focused on their direct kind of environment. They have 44 garden centers, over 4,000 employees. They have over 420 shareholders, and it's a healthy mix between employees and externally approved shareholders, investors. It's an 170 million market cap at the moment.
Wow.
So it's sizable. Actually, they should naturally go to a public market. And they didn't want to because they want to retain control on the shareholders, but they also want to have that mechanism, create liquidity and attract new investors and to make their market attractive. So they run now markets under their own control. So we created their register and they schedule auctions. They had 2. So we recently onboarded them. They had 2. And you see increased participation of shareholders to trade in and out. We've seen a small rise of the share price already. And it is full transparency of the participants of the markets, not who they are trading with, but at least in terms of what kind of volumes are in the market on the bid and ask, what is the indicative price, and the settlement is highly efficient because you have your shares on your name and in the register within 1 day, because we do that seamlessly in one shot. It's a fintech platform, which is very helpful.
And so that sounds like a great success. Quite a sizable company for a private company. What does the pipeline of private companies look like for you?
Now, we think that there are a lot of these kind of examples already out there in the private sector. So I don't think that a lot of amongst us are realizing. But if you only look at the UK, which is for us, as I mentioned before, a huge market, there are over 19,000 private companies with at least 100 employees. And they are existing companies, they are carrying actually the economy of the UK, if you like, for a big deal. So we are willing to tap into that market and to make ourselves visible and to offer that besides public markets and maybe, getting private equity parties in, because that may be a private kind of participation you don't want either. We have a solution actually which can provide you that step up, create liquidity, and in a professional way you can work on attracting investors you would like to have on board in your share. So I think that's a huge market there. So what we do then in order to create that attraction is to make ourselves visible more. So we started a huge campaign which soon becomes visible in the UK and in London. And we have actually, after Blue Diamond, we have that business case as well to show Blue Diamond is very, very cooperative to support showing what it brings them. Is that we do a lot of discussions and demonstrations, and we have at least at this moment 20 discussions ongoing with existing parties. Not saying it's all pipeline, but it's a good start because we just started 2 months ago. Yeah,
that sounds fantastic. Cees, thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
If you want to read the Hardman notes about TISE, you can find them on our website for free. Website is hardmanandco.com. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, join the conversation wherever you're watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.